That's right. I'm talking to you. This is Chris Brake, and I'm telling you that every Saturday night is punk rock night at the Melody Inn in Indianapolis.
Hey! This is John, and I'm telling you, thank you for everybody out there who's clicking on our Amazon link. I don't know if you know it or not, but the Chris Brake Show is an affiliate with Amazon. So we have a link on our .com, at chrisbrakeshow.com. You click on it, and you can shop on Amazon. You can buy all the normal stuff you would, but a portion of the money comes back to the Chris Show. Just a portion.
The Chris Show.
The Chris Brake Show. So to say it again, if you want to help out the show, go to chrisbrakeshow.com. Click on the Amazon picture, and then proceed to buy things like you normally would, and some of the money comes back to us. We really appreciate it because we need money to buy things.
We will exchange your money for goods and services that support the show.
Yeah, the new mics, new computers. The more you shop, the better the show will get. So keep that in mind, and thank you for everybody out there who's clicking on it.
Or if you want to donate microphones, send them to chrisbrakeshow@gmail.com.
You want to cut out the middleman, just get a hold of us, chrisbrakeshow@gmail.com. We will take your microphones.
All right, let's do this.
Let's do it.
Oh.
Chris Brake Show.
Yep. What do we got going on today, John?
We got Steven Schroeder on the line tonight.
Steven fucking Schroeder.
Steven Schroeder. He is a master.
I don't know how.
He's a man that you can't introduce.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. Steven Schroeder from the Protestant Separatist.
Right. He helps us actually in this episode. We're going to solve Indiana's longest running mystery.
Yes. According to the Indianapolis Star. Indianapolis Star constantly mentions Indianapolis' longest running mystery.
Right.
And the mystery is Mr. Steven Schroeder.
Yeah, he has the answer to it. On the air, you're going to hear the mystery revealed. It's very interesting.
It is, man. All right, let's talk to Rich real quick, and then we'll tell you more about Steven Schroeder before we get him on the phone. We have Rich Barker on the phone. Hello, sir.
Hey, what's going on?
I don't know why my voice just kind of got a little more gruff when I introduced that.
When you talk about punk rock night, that happens.
Yeah, we got Rich on the phone. Hey, in case you forgot,
let me get this gravel out of my mouth.
Every Saturday night is punk rock night at the Melody Inn in Indianapolis. You have a good one. You're going to get fisted this week on March 29th, Rich.
Double fisted, man. There are two fist bands this Saturday. Yeah.
You have Necro
You
Demon.
read the list?
Yeah, I got it. Necrotomon. Necrotomon. Lucifist. Hex Bombs. Sister Fister. That is
correct.
Necro Demon. You know what?
It is Necro Demon, yeah.
What is with that is Saturday the 29th, 10 p.m. Doors at 9, $6. What is the deal with metal and punk? Because
we just happen to have a great metal band coming through town and a great punk band coming through town. It's like, well, let's put them on the same bill and have some fun with it. So
a lot of people say you can't.
A bit.
A lot of people say you can't like metal and punk. Is that true?
I do. I have since the '80s, man. What are you talking about?
I've never been a big fan of the metal.
Yeah, Chris doesn't like the metal.
Really?
Yeah, I just don't. I don't like it. I don't know why.
Not your cup of tea.
I can get into
Well,
hardcore.
then you'll only like half of our show.
And also, April 5th, you have Involuntaries, Hana Lee, Voice of Addiction.
That's correct.
I like
All
that Involuntaries.
Punk Rock Night award-winning bands.
Oh, nice.
Oh. Why are there only 3?
Yeah.
Is that on purpose?
Because one band dropped off the bill.
Oh.
We may be adding another, or maybe not. 3 band nights are nice, easy bands. No one's fighting over who's playing first or last. So if we just go with 3, it'd be a nice, easy, smooth night. And we drop the cover down to $5.
Nice.
Oh.
But that does happen. Sometimes a 4 band night, sometimes it's 3 band nights. That's how we roll.
What's your take on
But it was a 4-band.
I forgot his name. Deuterus? What's his name?
Odorous Maximus.
Odorous Maximus. Rest in peace. Guar.
Yeah, Odorous Maximus passed away. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm glad I got to see Guar perform once.
Yeah.
He did die way too young. No, I don't think anyone was expecting that. He wasn't on anyone's to die list.
Yeah.
I don't know the details, but I know there's a little bit of irony because, their show is so much about death, and I think all the characters die at some point in one of their shows, at least every season, or every tour. But it's saddening. There's been some spin-off bands of Guar that have come through and played punk rock night too. So we've had some of their family and former members.
Did you have Did you ever have Mens Rea?
No.
Yeah, we actually got to play with them. I never got to see Guar, but we did do a show or two, maybe it was just one with Mens Rea, which had I think 3 of the members.
Yeah.
In Mens Rea were in Guar, and I never knew it. John had read this earlier, when it happened, but I didn't know that a guy named Corey Smoot, who played Flatus,
Glutus Maximus, wasn't it? Was it Flatus Maximus?
I think it was Flatus, maybe.
Flatus Maximus?
Something like that. Yeah, he was found dead on the tour bus a few years ago, and that guy was a pretty fucking nice guy.
Yeah, he was super pumped, like super full of energy, cool guy.
Yeah, big shitting.
How he died? Did they find out?
It sounded like a natural causes type thing. He was on the tour bus, and when they went to cross the border, they went to wake him up, and he was dead. I guess he had a pre-existing condition of like something. I can't remember what it's called, but he had some condition that was unchecked with his heart, and it ended up forming a blood clot.
Oh.
And he happened to die on the bus. And they actually, they retired his character.
It's heavy.
Yeah. So that was sad.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Well, let's not dwell on all this sadness.
Yeah. If you need to pick me up.
It is nice to remember our fallen, though.
You go to the Melody Inn. That'll pick you right up.
Yeah.
Metal and punk. I'm sure there will be some Guar mention on Saturday, March 29th. April 5th,
It's
April
true.
12th.
You'll be double-fisted.
That'll make you feel better.
With Lucia Fist and Sister Fister. It's going to be a good show.
Yeah, those pictures from Sister Fister crack me up.
I didn't see him. What is it?
It's just real funny. Like, this is sunglasses and the headbands. And
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, that's me. We all kind of take on 80s personas in that band.
Oh, okay.
So is it all covers?
For now, yeah. All fun, kind of cheesy, crazy covers. Some metal and some punk. We're mixing it up a bit. Some just straight up rock. Mostly from the 80s, because, that's kind of how the band was formed. We were playing an 80s night, and this became Sister Fista.
That's hilarious. I like that. All right, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling in today. Or us calling you.
Hey, thanks for checking in. Hey, no problem.
Punkrocknight.com. Yeah, I'll talk all over.
Yeah, do be sure and check out the homepage. We got video clips of all the bands playing and stuff, so check it out. See what you're getting into every week.
Sometimes you don't need, I kind of, most of the time, sorry, I was scrolling through and I saw the Sister Fister picture again. It just made me laugh. All right.
Would you even recognize me?
At first I thought you were the drummer. I was like, oh, Rich is on drums.
No.
Yeah. No.
Actually, the drummer's wearing guy liner. I haven't gone that far.
Well, you could be. You got sunglasses.
The drummer's Bronson Swanson Johnson, or Bron Swan John, as I call him.
I like Bron Swan John.
Yeah.
All right,
Bron Swan John, the Richinator, and Benny No Good. That is Sister Fista.
Oh, that's Benny No Good. All right.
That's Benny No Good.
All right, take it easy,
also
sir.
Also a staff member of Punk Rock Night. All right, man. Thanks for checking in.
All right, Rich, man. That sounds good. We'll see you out there at Punk Rock Night, man, on Saturday night.
We'll have a crazy good time. Take care, guys.
All right, man. Peace.
All right, bye.
Steven Schroeder.
Steven Schroeder.
That guy.
He's a guy.
Okay, now I kind of want to set this up for you.
Right.
Because, we jumped right into it with Mr. Schroeder.
He's got a topic, what he talks about is hard to really talk about, so we just kind of jumped right into the middle of it at the beginning.
Yeah, and he did explain that this is kind of hard to understand to a radio audience, but I asked him about it, if it's conspiracy or not, and of course he said it's facts. Not everything he says is facts, I don't think.
He seems to be pretty fact-based.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing about Gatling, if it's not a fact, he'll tell you that, it's not how it was answered, like what he thinks, and then how it was answered via the media.
Right.
So it's kind of a conspiracy guy that we have this show.
Right.
But the first thing he talks about, and you can go to our chrisbreakshow.com and our Facebook page. We'll put this information on there. He talks about these magic squares.
Right.
I kind of had a problem understanding it, but he has pictures of it that will be on our website if you want to check it out and understand what exactly that is. But he talks about basically what we're trying to get to and get out of him is that I read an article in Nouveau. That's how I found out about him. And he said that Indianapolis is the gateway to hell.
Right.
So the entire conversation is going to be kind of based around the fact that Indianapolis is the gateway to hell.
Right. As alarming as that sounds, that's exactly what the topic is.
Yes. So let's get Mr. Schroeder on the phone. I have always wanted to talk to you because I was friends with friends of your son, and I heard a lot about you, and then I read that article in Nouveau that you did, which I can't find it online anymore. But you have I don't know what would you call you or what you do? Like, what are you a conspiracy advocate? Like what?
Actually, it wasn't really the conspiracies. It was the realities that was getting me, because my life was such to where some things would happen to where I'd be like, well, that doesn't seem right. It was sort of like being in the Matrix, It was seeing things that just didn't make sense and didn't add up, and then when you start investigating them, you see it's not really a conspiracy. It's actually history, and it makes sense of all those things that you really couldn't put it all together. The Nouveau article, I did have to clarify one thing in the Nouveau article. He misquoted me as far as talking about the end of the world, and I never said the end of the world or this, that, and the other. I was talking about December 2012 as far as being the divine providence giving Washington its power, because Washington is all set up and designed on star worship and the influence of the stars and the procession of the zodiacs. It's basically sun worship. Now, a lot of people think that America is a Christian nation or is founded on Christianity, and that's just totally what they're hoping everybody believes. Because basically what they did was they found out the secret foundation for the power of Egypt and how they became powerful, and they pretty much adopted the same game plan, the same plan for Washington, D.C. and Indianapolis.
Okay, so you don't mean the way the system is set up. You mean the actual physical design of the city.
Yeah, the actual foundation and the laying out of the city. I just posted a lot of things on my Facebook page if anybody wants to get a better understanding, because trying to explain this over the radio is going to be really tricky and difficult.
Right.
We're talking about the actual foundation.
What is your Facebook page? So we can send people over.
It's Stephen Schroeder, StephenSchroeder, and I posted some YouTube videos. I've got a lot of YouTube videos, and you can find those at ProtestantSep.com or Protestant Sep at YouTube. It's ProtestantSep, Protestant Sep on YouTube, and I have a lot of videos that go into a lot more detail that can explain it, because trying to explain it over the air is going to be a little bit difficult. Because
we'll try and do it around basically what I remember from the Nouveau article, see, because I think that was laid out pretty well. They kind of explained. Now, did you say gateway to hell? Was that a misquote?
No, that's exactly what Indianapolis is designed for. To be real brief,
that the Egyptians believed in a daily resurrection, the actual physical king. What they would do is they would bring down the stars to the earth. Instead of trying to build, like the Tower of Babel, thinking they could build a building up into the heavens, they brought heavens down to the earth. And that's why the 3 pyramids in Giza replicate the 3 stars of Orion's belt. Because if they could build or replicate on earth as it is in heaven, then the Pharaoh wouldn't just be a man, he would be considered a god or made into a god. And that's how he established his domain and his reign. And so with the Rosetta Stone and the French finding it, you had the French designer that designed Indianapolis. It was the same one that designed Washington, D.C., L'Enfant. And they designed it for the purpose that the sun rises at Washington at the Capitol. The Capitol is located between the equinox and the solstices. It's a direct center of a reconciliation of the equinoxes and solstice. And that's the doorway or the Golden Gate. They talk about the Statue of Liberty standing beside the Golden Gate. The Golden Gate is actually the Capitol where it's located at. And it's it's really interesting when you find the Egyptian connection or the Egyptian story. The path of Ra, it's the path of the sun that it travels, and it's called the path of the 2 ways. When you understand that Jefferson laid out the groundwork for 6x6 magic squares. Those are sun squares. They're also called tables of the planets, and each planet has a different magic square. And those were talismans that they would etch into different kinds of metals, and they would have different kind of influence for different incantations. Anyhow, this path of Ra is actually the national road going from Washington to Indianapolis. And at Indianapolis it's the 3 steps. They're depicted in the Egyptian hieroglyphs of how to get to the underworld. In Freemasonry, it shows the goat and the girl at the pillar, and they're always on 3 steps, and the 3 steps are significant because Indianapolis was designed with talismans stacked one on top of the other, making these 3 steps going into the underworld.
Now, does that stuff actually work? I mean, what's the people go to all this crazy effort to build shrines and do all this stuff? Does it work? I mean, what's the influence that it has on us in this city?
Because it gives them power. I like to take it back to the very basic beginnings. In the beginning, because I believe the beginning is like at the very end, or the end in the beginning, or the end comes before the beginning. But in the beginning, the serpent tempted man, if you disobey God and make this image, I will give you the power and authority to rule.
Okay.
You'll become enlightened. And when you make these magic squares, it actually opens up your mind to 3-dimensional thought, because the only way you can make a magic square is you picture the numbers and you put the numbers going in a northeast fashion, and northeast is real significant. And you make the numbers to where when you come to the edge of the paper, you would fold it together, vertically, and you would continue the numbers around that way. And then when you get to the bottom of the top of the page, you'd fold the paper horizontally to continue the numbers to make these magic squares. So it kind of opens up your mind to 3-dimensional thought. But it's the enlightenment that the serpent promised man. If you partake of this knowledge, you will become equal to God. And that's what the apotheosis is all about. The apotheosis means to make something into a deity. And they did that with George Washington in the nation's capital. It's called the Apotheosis of George Washington, where it depicts him being God, seated in the rainbow.
Right.
He who mounts above, seated on the rainbow, surrounded by his heavenly host, which is a pagan pantheon. And Indianapolis, also in the state capital, has what they call the Apotheosis of Indiana, which is the triple goddess, and they've actually apotheosized the state and made it into a goddess, the consort of the federal god in Washington. But Indianapolis' purpose is the gates to the underworld. According to this Egyptian knowledge of where the sun travels, he would go into the Capitol through this false door, down these 3 steps, and back east, back to Washington, D.C., to be resurrected. It's the ritual every day that he goes through as far as this apotheosis.
So that gives them supernatural powers?
Oh, that gives them, and that's why a lot of people are magnetized toward the craft and the occult, because it does have effects, just like the moon has effects on your tides and growing and different things like that. It does work, because here's the messed up thing about it. It works, and they know it. They're in control, and they have the power. Okay, and yes, it does work. The serpent told man, if you make a graven image, you'll have the power and authority to rule. The Great Seal is a graven image of the god of the Pharaoh. Okay, and that's the graven image that he said to make, because in that image, it depicts everything. It shows the whole apotheosis and how to become equal to God. And now Washington is currently sitting on a throne in the Capitol, in the rotunda, which is called the Holy of Holies, showing himself that he is God. So you tell me whether it works or not. Tell me if Washington's not in control. And it was not because it was the will of God. It was because of the deal he made with the devil. And Indianapolis is a key component to all of that. But it's right in the middle of the Bible Belt, the heart of the Bible Belt. And nobody would suspect that Indianapolis is like a pagan capital that was designed for the sole purpose of being Hathor, which means the house of God or the house of Horus. So Washington is basically Horus, represented the sun god, and he travels to Indianapolis to the capital. And if the Egyptians have it to where Hathor is called the house of Horus, to where he enters her through the head, through the capital. It's kind of profane and graphic or whatnot, but it was a ritual to where that's how she gives him life, and that's how he enters into her and travels through her body and is born again in Washington, D.C. So
I want to talk about the physical imagery that is downtown, because a lot of what you're saying is, kind of dependent on research and things like that, but it's all based around the actual things downtown that you've seen in Indianapolis. Like, it's a pentagram? Like, is that one of the things I read, that the city is laid out like a pentagram?
Well, the city is laid out, and it's called a magic circle and a magic square, and it's stacked on top of three talismans. What they did real briefly is Jefferson designed the land, the basic foundation, into 6x6 sun squares. The total of a sun square totals 666. Okay, in the northeast corner, the government, but it's called the corporation according to the legal documents I found.
Right.
It's called the donation. It's called the donation from the corporation, and it's a 2x2 mile square. So in picture a 6x6 magic square, and in the northeast corner there's 4 squares. So it's a 2x2 square, and that was called the donation from the corporation, given them. And this is before they even was going to have the Capitol in Indianapolis, because the Capitol was down south at the time. But this was laid out in accordance to their whole national road and the Washington Street and the whole thing. But picture on top of that 2x2, they used a Babylonian birth chart and designed out of that 2x2 square a 1 mile square. It's directly in the center. So if you look at
the main thing that I guess that you find unsettling about all this is that the United States government is supposed to be a Christian organization of some sort, like it's supposed to be based on Christian faith, and you're saying that everything, that all their museums and like basically their cities just completely contradict that, and are all based around pagan gods. Like you said, downtown there's all these monuments with pagan gods all over the displays and museums and stuff like that, courthouses, but yet there's the Second Commandment.
Yeah, what's that?
It's called.
They left the Second Commandment off of the 10 Commandments or something like that. That was, didn't you? You smashed that, didn't you? Didn't you go downtown and smash the 10 Commandments? What's that? Can you tell us about that?
Once I realized that it's all front, that it's actually a pagan Masonic government secretly disguised as a Christian, front. Then I started doing research. And the Indiana State poem says, "For a pagan voice within me seems to answer to it all." And I'm like, what is this stuff? And so I was at the state capitol, and I went out in the lawn, and there was the 10 Commandments, and I was doing archaeological studies about Carthage and North Africa as far as the Bel worship. Right. And I seen some of their altars where they sacrificed their babies had this image of this crescent moon over top of a solar disk inside of a triangle, which represents the sun goddess, the moon goddess, and the earth goddess as one symbol, which is the symbol of the eye. And I was looking at the 10 Commandments, and I saw this image of this pagan breasted sun goddess inscribed directly on the 10 Commandments, right above the inscription, "I am the Lord thy God." And I was standing there. I thought I was going to wake up at any moment, because I thought, no, this can't be happening.
Right.
And I said, they can't do that. That violates the Second Commandment. So I looked at the Second Commandment, and it says, "Don't take the Lord's name in vain," or something like that. I said, wait a minute. I said, that's the third commandment. The second commandment is missing. The second commandment for Graven Images, the only commandment that has a warning attached to it, was missing. And so I said, well, then how do they have 10? Because it was listed 1 through 10. And what they did is they took the 10th commandment, which says, "Thou shalt not covet." So the 9th commandment said, "Thou shalt not covet." And the 10th commandment said, "Thou shalt not covet." So they took the 10th and into two. And at the time, I didn't realize that was the Catholic version, which would still been putting the state in dire straits because they're giving preference to Catholics over Protestants as far as having the Catholic version. But having that graven image of that Egyptian sun goddess directly on the tablets, which forbids graven images and other gods, I was like, oh, this isn't going to stand. So I went to the State House and I told them, I said, that's not a promotion of my faith. That's a profaning, because the pagans delight in desecration. They want to have the cross. They want to have the commandments, not because they respect it, but they want to combine it with their graven images, just like the Philistines did with Dagon when they captured the commandments. They wanted to set it up next to their statue. They wanted, because that's what the pagans do, because they delight in desecration. But not only because they delight in desecration, but the pagans understand that when you take something pure and you combine it with something that's profane, okay, it creates a spell of strong delusion. That's why Christians couldn't see at the state capitol for 33 years. They think, oh, they have a monument of the Ten Commandments. They're promoting our faith. Right. And not even realize they had profaned it and desecrated it and shamefully handled it and had it up there for public display. So I said, look, you got 30 days to get that off because I'm not a taxpayer. I'm not paying for it. You know, put it at a lodge hall, put it somewhere, but it can't be on state property. Anyhow, it went round and round. I tried every legal recourse, so I had to resolve to civil disobedience and forcibly remove it, and actually do time in jail for the vandalism.
Oh, did you do time in jail? I thought you kind of got off. I thought that was kind of part of the underlying, conspiracy. Didn't they go? Didn't you at some point say like, "Come arrest me"? I've got. Oh, you steal Pan's head or something?
Oh, let's slow down. Let's slow down. Yeah. So you removed it. You removed it. Like, did you smash it or did you like cut it off? Like, how do you get that out of there?
I gave them space to repent. First, I took like a red can of paint and I etched out the eye, and then I circled the number 2 so they could understand that it was missing. Put a subtraction mark on there and wrote "Meeny Meeny Tickle Parson" on the back of the commandments, which is the writing on the wall, meaning, the gig is up, And so, they removed it. They knew who was doing it, but they didn't want to make an issue of it. They did not want to tell the people what was going on. The Indianapolis Star, it's like they kept on putting out these stories with Ruth Holliday and Will Higgins talking about, well, this person has a problem with government promoting religion. He's against the commandments. So I didn't have anybody, backing me or having my back as far as, yeah, you're right, or giving some kind of some support,
Right.
So they was twisting the story around, and all I was going to do is put it in the Indiana history of them acknowledging exactly what they did to the commandments. So, they spray painted, they cleaned that all off with, power washers, whatnot. So then I went up there about a month later and, well, not even a month later, because I gave them, 30 days, whatnot, chiseled out the I, and I chiseled out the 2, and I chiseled out the 10, and I wrote something on the back of it. And so they cleaned it all off, and they kept it all hush-hush. And so it's like, it can't stand. So the time expired, and I went up there, and I knocked it over. And so they set it back up. And then they put cameras around. And so finally it was one of those times it was like they refused to tell the story. And I finally said, you know what? This is the day. I've got to do it in broad daylight. So I went down there in broad daylight, pushed it over again. This time it broke into pieces. And then I went home. And I waited. And then I waited. And, 1 week and then 2 weeks. And meantime, I'm still writing correspondence, trying to get the start, just to tell the people the story,
right.
And finally, I contacted the Jewish Post and Opinion because the Indianapolis Star and the Indianapolis News wasn't doing anything about it. They was taking the story and twisting it around, So I contacted the Jewish Post and Opinion, and I said the reason they're not arresting me is because they know they're in the wrong. I'm basically using civil disobedience to force them to comply with the law. Not only because there's a separation of church and state, but you don't take that which is sacred to somebody else and desecrate it like that, because I knew what they was up to. I know what they're about.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, you go to the library and look at the foundation of the pillars, and you can see the zodiac. You go to the federal obelisk, which is right across from the federal building. It's a black granite obelisk, and it's got a cross and the commandments on it. But look at the cross, and you'll see that on the cross is the graven image of their goddess Ashtaroth, standing there with their arms upraised. And this is all documented, to where it's like, and they got the Ten Commandments on the other side, but you got to look at it. It's like they've taken the commandments and the cross, and they put it on an obelisk, which is the most offensive graven image there is, because the obelisk is, the erect penis of the god of earth.
Right, obelisk represents a penis.
Pardon me?
Obelisks represent penises, right?
Yeah, of the God of Earth. And what it is it's like Washington, D.C. The obelisk of Washington is situated as such that it actually penetrates the vajayjay of Virgo.
Wow.
So you're having a moral man having sex with the Queen of Heaven with this, the way that it's situated. When you got the stars, the White House, the Capitol, and the obelisk represent the 3 stars of Virgo, just like the Egyptians' pyramids are the 3 stars of Orion's belt. Washington did the same thing. He replicated Washington as the city of Virgo and has his obelisk penetrating a Virgo. So it's the profound things that you don't even think is the possibility of it. But then when you understand the facts of it, we've been tricked, we've been bamboozled, we've been led to believe a lie. But it comes to a point where it's like, okay, you can do your things, but don't break the law, don't break the Constitution, and don't be desecrating and profaning that which is sacred to us.
Was the Second Commandment on the obelisk? Was it the "Thou shalt not worship any graven images"? Was that on this? Was that on this one this time around?
No, it was before that. It doesn't have any wordings. It just has numbers.
Oh.
But his hand is covering up the second, and his other hand, while he's holding, is covering up the 10th.
Yeah, his hand is actually covering up the Second Commandment.
Yeah, the second and the 10th. So the numbers 2 and 10 are concealed by his hands that's holding it. So it just goes to show exactly this isn't. And see, the thing is, the artist that did that, he had a shop called the Roman Bronze Works, and he's the one that also did the Pro Patria, which is the world's largest cast bronze that was down there at the Indiana War Memorial. And his studio was accidentally ran into by a bomber that ran into the Empire State Building. You know, this is before 911, okay, because they had an inexperienced pilot that wasn't qualified to fly this plane, and the headings or the readings must have been wrong or whatever they programmed into the plane, and he flew into this guy's studio, destroying all the evidence and all the facts of Indianapolis and everything that is actually. It's mind-boggling because the conspiracy theories are just actual facts that when you add them all up, they're busted, and they know that.
So you researched.
And there's not a lot.
You researched this guy who actually made the statue where the commandments were removed, and you wanted to know more about it. And when you essentially your search was led to destroyed documents. Is that what happened? Like.
Well, no. The actual artist that did the bronze works, like he did the Pro Patria. And the bronze plaques that are on the federal obelisk of the cross and the commandments. See, because on the other side, it has also a picture of a guy standing there, which is like the opposite side of Moses, and he has the zodiac going around the globe. So they got the zodiac, the obelisk, and the cross and the commandments all combined on one federal obelisk, and that's on the outside of the War Memorial. If you go on the inside of the War Memorial, there's a dedication room, and there's a temple inside there, and above the flag, they got this 8-pointed star, which is Venus, which is another name for Ishtar, this goddess of war. And when you understand that this Indianapolis was built for the honor of her, built as her city, have apotheosized the state and made the state of Indiana into a deity, this war goddess, it gives you an understanding like that.
She's a false god, right? She is a graven image, correct?
Yeah, she's like,
and they're like
hiding
hiding that. So you're saying that they have all these things. I'm just trying to get this to like an actual point. Like they have all these graven images, all these false gods in this Christian state everywhere that are not Jesus. They're not the Lord. And then when they do have, the statues memorializing and like representing the faith of Christianity, they then remove the commandment about graven images, and yet they have graven images all over the city. Like, that's insane. Like, that's a total contradiction.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it's talking about, an age of great deception. And I mean, I was protesting now the commandments because I actually went down there and protested before I did anything. Like I said, I exhausted all legal means. I went down there and protested during the day. And at first I was standing there with these signs, saying remove these commandments. And I felt kind of silly because there was nobody there because they was building this place across the street. Before there was nothing there. They was building the addition onto the Capitol over there. And all of a sudden they started bringing out these silver shovels and sticking them in the ground, started setting up lawn chairs right across the street from where I was protesting, as if they was setting up this grand audience for this protest. And so that's how I knew God's in this, obviously, because something's going on here. Well, Governor Biden came there to speak. I guess it was the Arbor Day tree planting ceremony or groundbreaking ceremony. And the whole road was just completely filled with people. I made a video of it back in the day, but there was like a pastor came up to me and goes, "How dare you protest the Ten Commandments?" I said, because he introduced himself as a pastor. I said, "Well, you're a pastor. You make money off the flock." I said, what's the Ten Commandments? And so he's looking over and he's trying to read them. I said, "What's the Second Commandment?" And so he read it off, what was written up there. I said, "No, that's actually the Third Commandment." I said, "Where's the commandment forbidding graven images?" And so he looked at it and he goes, "It's not there." He goes, "Well, why is that?" And I said, "Well, look at the graven image above the inscription. It says, 'I am the Lord thy God.'" I said, "That's the graven image of Pharaoh's God." I said, "That's the sun goddess." I said, that's Baal. That's Baal and Ashtaroth."
What did he say?
He was just shocked. He goes, well, first he goes, "Well, there's 10 there," and he went down the numbers. He goes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's my challenge. You know what the Second Commandment is. And when I showed him, he goes, "Well, how'd they get away with that?" And I said, "Well, the 9th and 10th, they divided and made it into the same commandment, same redundant commandment." I said, "To conceal that." He goes, "Why did they do that?" I said, "Because they're pagans. It's a pagan state. It's a state that was designed to honor this pagan goddess." I mean, Monument Circle on top of the obelisk, when you understand the base of Indianapolis on the 6x6, and then on top of the 2x2, and they're making that 1 mile square. On that 1 mile square, they inscribed a 5x5 square, which is a square of Mars, the god of war. In the center of that is number 13, which is real significant when you understand the whole 13 and why it's significant to her. In the middle is the obelisk, and she's on top of it, she being the Roman goddess of war. So she's on top of his erect phallic, so you got the sacred union. They call it the sacred union downtown. And it's actually the sacred union between Victory and Mars, Venus and Mars, or Ishtar, the 8-pointed star, the one that they're so into.
What made them?
You have
what made them? What made them decide to finally come and arrest you for this? Because you said they did not want it publicized on what you were actually trying to fight for. Like what? Why did they finally decide to arrest you? And did they cover it up? Like, did they still not get your message out?
Well, because the Jewish Post and Opinion wasn't like the Indianapolis Star. They actually publicized exactly what the issue was. And so, they had to prove me wrong because I was saying they can't arrest me because they're the ones breaking the law. I said, they know they can't arrest me. And I said, that's why it's been 3 months and they won't come get me. Basically, it was throwing down the gauntlet. I was wanting to actually do time to pay the price, to be persecuted for defending my faith and make it part of Indiana history, So it was no thing to me. I mean, yeah, I had a wife and kids and a job and all this other stuff, but some things are so important to me that I can't help myself. When it's a matter of principle, I'm standing.
So you did get arrested.
Toe-to-toe. Right.
You did get arrested?
And I did get arrested. I was working at a warehouse, and 2 men in nice suits and sunglasses came in and handcuffed me and put me in a nice car and took me downtown and put me in jail proper.
Wow.
And down at Marion County jail, which was funny because I became a trustee and I did such a good job in the kitchen that, the manager said, "Would you like a job here?" So the very next day I started working as a food production supervisor at the Marion County jail and worked there for 5 years. And here's a kicker.
Huh.
Here's the kicker. I've already done my time, paid my price, right? And I'm working in Marion County Jail as a food production supervisor. And Frank Anderson, who was my boss when I was working as a supervisor for the federal police at the federal building and the federal courthouse, he found out that I was working at the jail. So he comes down there and talks to the jail commander and tells them that they got to get rid of me, that they can't have me talking to the inmates because I have a lot of things to say. So they're trying to blackball me from providing a living for my family, simply because of my speech. I mean, there's some heavy crimes out there where I could see somebody getting involved and saying you shouldn't really hire this guy. But I mean, when you understand what the story was, which they did, there's no violence involved here. It's standing up for what's right, and for him to come there and blackball me to where and my boss was a real good person, and she goes, "Well, I'm not getting rid of him. He's the best worker I got. I'm not getting rid of him." So, of course, they didn't renew our contract, and we lost the contract, so we was out of there anyway. But I know how they play, and they like to exact the price from you. But, I paid pretty much all the price. I mean, if you knew my whole story, they've retaliated against me. I mean, at IPS, my kids brought home some stuff about teaching Islam in schools. And so, I complained about that, went and addressed the school board and questioned them on their policy on religious indoctrination, this, that, and the other. And my son's principal was sitting in the audience making noise while I'm giving my speech. Well, the next day, I think it was 2 days later, my wife calls me at work and says, Justin didn't get off the bus. I said, he didn't get off the bus. She goes, I don't know where he's at. And, he's like in 6th grade. So I contacted the school. They chipped him. The state took him into protective custody.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, on a Friday, and he'd never spent a night away from the house. And all of a sudden, he's downtown in a building for, inner city troubled youth because they was trying to retaliate me and silence me about speaking about Islamic instruction in school. And this was back in the early 90s.
What school was
before
that?
Before you understand Islam.
What school was that?
So, pardon me?
What school was that?
At Indianapolis Public Schools. And then, we couldn't see him, and my parents couldn't even visit him. And then Monday, he spent the whole weekend away from the house. And, my wife lost it. She goes, there comes a time where it's just not worth it. And I said, I'm going to find out exactly what's up. Well, they said, somebody had overreacted. Somebody just overreacted. So I tried to get a lawsuit. Well, you can't sue a corporation, so I threw it out on a technicality. But they were just trying to show you they have ways of messing with you, and you better expect it when you stand up against them because they don't play, but they're going to pay. You know what I'm saying? In the long run, we've already won.
Right.
There's
a lot of different.
There was another fascinating aspect of that Nouveau article. I think it was in the Nouveau article about the statue of Pan downtown with the what is it? The tree? What is the tree of Adam? Or what's that called?
What's that tree where they cut off the limbs? And
they put breast on it.
Yeah, right across from Pan is this tree, and they call it an Asherah, and that's one of the first things that really tripped me out because when you're walking around the fountain, it just looks like a tree with its limbs cut off. But if you walk over to where the shadows are, in the shadows is where they hide most of the stuff. I went on the other side of it, and there's these two breasts, and it's like they put up an Asherah. An Asherah is where they took the trees and they cut off the limbs and they carved breast on it because it's all about the tree goddess. Because Hathor was considered the goddess of the sycamore. She's considered a tree goddess. And that's the significance of Indianapolis being the world's largest Christmas tree and that tree being located there because she's the goddess of the evergreen. She is the goddess of the tree. She's a tree goddess. So they had the Asherah there. Well, right directly across from there is Pan. And Pan is significant because Pan is the universal symbol of paganism. And he's in University Park, and he's on a pedestal, and they placed him on a pedestal, and Pan means all. Good, evil, light, dark, male, female, sun, moon. He's everything.
And in between, because I went down there, and you're not exaggerating any of this. Like, there really is a fucking tree with fucking breast on it, with the arms cut off, reaching up. It's insane. And then there's Pan, and it's like Pan's playing the flute, like across the way. But then there's that fountain you're talking about that has just crazy, almost like drunken, like worshipers of some sort, like dancing around.
Wow.
Like it's all trippy, man.
Yeah, if you look at the goddess on top, that's the daughter of Pan. The Asherah is the consort of the god Pan. And their daughter, just like there's a son of God, they believe in the daughter of Pan. And if you look at the top, she actually has horns coming out, and she has her breast exposed. But all the kids dancing around are just young kids, and some of them are semi-nude, this, that, and the other. And she's playing the cymbals. Well, that came from Carthage, North Africa, when they used to sacrifice babies because they had it was a fertility cult, and the women were considered the goddess, and the men were considered the gods, and the woman would be on top of the man, and they would cause a lot of babies. You understand, a fertility religion produces a lot of babies, so they would have annual sacrifices of the babies, and that's where you get the word cannibal, because Kana means priest of Baal. So cannibal means the priest of Baal because they were the only ones that were to partake of the sin offering, which was the sacrifice of the child. That's where you get the word sardonic laughter. When the kids would put on the grill, they would look like they were laughing, so the parents said that they were enjoying themselves. But it was a really barbaric, the archaeological digs of it showed it was just a crazy fertility cult, and that's what they had the babies for. But they would always have these people outside the temple, playing the cymbals and singing and dancing and having a lot of noise, so you couldn't hear the screams and this, that, and the other.
Oh, man.
And that's what that
symbolizes. It looks barbaric, man. Like those, I mean, you can tell when you're looking at it. It doesn't look as peaceful as it's trying to portray itself. It's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, look at that. Take a good close look at that chick's face next time, and you'll see actually horns coming out, and you'll see a pretty wicked face. Same with the stuff down at Monument Circle. You'll see the lamps, and you'll see these faces of the sun god and this moon god with all these serpents around it. It's what it's all about, and people don't realize that's the whole game downtown Indianapolis, and it's really a shame because like Monument Circle, this whole thing's dedicated to this goddess. You got to remember the USS Indianapolis, which delivered the atomic bomb, was sunk by a so-called Japanese sub that was actually a captured sub, and they left him out there to be eaten by the sharks. That was a major sacrifice. You talk about Gatling. The Gatling gun is caused more deaths than anything else in the war, and that Dr. Gatling used to perform sacrifices downtown at the governor's mansion, which was placed at Monument Circle before the Monument Circle was built. Monument Circle first was built a governor's mansion, but it wasn't really like a governor's mansion because it was divided into 4 rooms, and they used to have doctors come there and practice surgery. See, because after World War I, they're supposed to have all this money. World War II, they're supposed to have all this money they give to the orphans and the widows. And Indianapolis had a problem with orphans and widows after the war and all these, homeless kids. And the kids, there was actually stories in the Indianapolis Star and News that they could hear kids screaming from the inside of that place. And there's all kinds of ghost stories and folklore about what's going on. But they was actually sanctifying that place for this monument by having a so-called governor's mansion there that they used to get rid of their orphan problem. And at the same time, sacrifice kids just like Bell worshipers had always done.
Downtown in Indianapolis. You're saying they were sacrificing kids downtown in Indianapolis?
In the governor's mansion where Monument Circle, the monument currently stands. It was the governor's mansion. And there's actual stories. And the Indianapolis Star said they investigated and found that there was a wild turkey in there that was making all that noise. Okay, Dr. Gatling was the one who was doing a lot of it, and he's the one who got enlightened with this way of mechanizing a machine gun that would kill thousands and thousands. They even said this would be the weapon to end all wars. Okay, he got enlightened from the war goddess by performing these sacrifices. So yes, it works. It works wickedly well.
Now I want to go back to Pan. So you did the same thing basically with Pan, right? That you did with the 10 Commandments.
Absolutely. One arm at a time. One arm at a time. And the thing was, they wasn't writing about it. I said, well, look, if you can desecrate my cross and my commandments, then I should be able to have fair play with yours, something that's really sacred to you. And I understand that Pan is the most significant thing. He seems like a real little statue on a real little pedestal, but it means everything, because if they can have a graven image of their God in public place and nobody see it and them get away with it. And the interesting thing about it, because I was always wondering, why wouldn't the Indianapolis Star publish the story? It's profound. It sells newspapers. Why are they holding back on it? I looked at the back of the Pan statue, and on the base, guess who it was donated by? Oh, the same newspaper on the top of their headline say, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty, Corinthians 6:14, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. They're quoting scriptures on the front page of their Indianapolis Star, and they're the ones who donated the Pan statue sitting in the park right across from their place.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it runs deep is what it is, and it's a big Masonic attaboy, like Axl Rose said. He goes, I'm not calling it Indianapolis anymore. It's got too many righteous, religious people in it. But it's not the kind he was talking about. He's talking about these people who call the shots and say what you can and can't do, where you will go, and what you will say and what you won't say. And this whole nine, I ain't playing that. And they know that. And I don't play. So it's just like one arm at a time. And of course it's like, I don't know. We don't know. They call it, the Indianapolis Star called it Indiana's longest running mystery, as if they didn't have a clue. Even though I would send them a picture of an arm each time it's missing, when they said, we don't know what's happening. We don't know what's happening. So Will Higgins did it.
Go ahead.
It's in book form, and I've got a lot of it put on my Facebook page. I quoted, tonight, republished it so people could see, some of these articles from Will Higgins, so they could see what I'm talking about. And I said, look, all I want is this to be Indiana state history. I said, I will make a deal with you. If you will publish the story exactly with the facts, very brief, exactly what my cause is here and what my beef is here with the government. I said, if you will do that, I said, I will show you the statue. Because the statue was missing. Let's see, we had 1, 2, 3 arms, and that was over like a year period. And then finally, it was like during the 500 festival when they had all that security and it was all published that they were going to have, undercover agents, this, that, and the other. I was thinking, what a grand time to go prove a point, So it took the whole statue, took it out, put it in a river, and I told Will Higgins, I said, if you agree to print the whole story of exactly what went down, I said, I will go show it to you. So he agreed. No cops. And so it was a dry riverbed. It was up there out in Greenwood. And I forget the name of the creek, but it's pretty much dried up because they tapped into it to use for the water to clean the sewage and whatnot. So I forget the name of the creek. Anyhow, it'll come to me. So he agreed to meet with me, and we met. We walked down to this dry creek, and I walked and I showed him behind the tree. I said, "There it is," and he looked at it and agreed to tell the story and is writing all this stuff down. So he gets in his car, and I walk to get in my car. He leaves, and here comes the state boy in an unmarked Camaro pulling up. And he's looking at me, and he sees me walking to get into the car, and I get into the car, and I take off. I don't take off, but I just leave the area.
Right.
And he was looking at me like, he was expecting me, to grab the statue and come back to the car and, put it in the trunk or something because he was just going to leave it out there, So they went out there, and, of course, it wasn't there when they went to look and find it, so they didn't have anything. And Will Higgins didn't the story. Even though I kept my end of the deal and I showed it to him, he didn't write the story. And it's still Indiana's longest-running mystery, and nobody has a clue about what it's all about. And see, here's where they made the big mistake. Now, here's Twilight Zone that'll really mess with your mind. Okay? The Pan statue is down there right now, and I haven't messed with it. And they're like, I wonder why he's not messing with it. See, because the Pan before had an erect phallic. He had an obelisk. He was ready to roll. This new one they put up, they made him impotent. Now think of the consequences of these guys who believe, but they're not really that into it, that they actually believe this stuff works, and they put up a statue of fertility god that is impotent. He's impotent. No, think about it. That's some major consequences. And that's why I didn't mess with him, because their own folly has caught up with them. They made an image of their fertility god, but trying to appease one person, because they even wrote in the Indianapolis Star, we think that he just has a problem with his erect penis. Pan's penis, okay? Now think about that. So they put up a Pan with a limpy, okay?
Right.
So basically the fertility god is impotent. So they actually put up an image of their god as an impotent god. And then once that happened, there's some wrath going on somewhere about these idiots that are servants of mine would do something so offensive to their own deity. And then the Washington Monument is still in a cast, which represents the same thing on a greater scale. So there's a connection there, but only if you believe.
So they never came after you for the Pan, and they also never arrested you. Like, they never arrested you, and they never got the story out. Like, just
no,
because they don't.
But see, here's what kind of threw a glitch in it, because I told them, I said, what we need is a high noon showdown, because they put it back up, so it's like, what we need is a high noon showdown. And so there was a plan to arrest me then during the high noon showdown, but I didn't show up. So they thought that they won, and it's like, ha, he didn't show up, and that was it. It's like, sometimes I think
now they have a limp fertility god.
It was sort of like I was saying, instead of arresting me, you're going to wait a month from now, and we'll have a high noon showdown. A high noon showdown. And since he didn't show, Will Higgins, Indianapolis Star, it's like, he didn't show up, he lost. It's like, I lost, I have my freedom, and you guys are foolish enough to make a deal with me for a high noon showdown. Think about how silly that is.
Wait, they wrote that in the Indianapolis Star? Did they say that you lost?
Basically, that I didn't show up and I cowered out, and there was 2 people that went there to represent me, and they pretty much documented everything to where these guys had their hands on their pistols, and they was wanting a showdown. That's the only reason they agreed to it. And so after the showdown, they felt like they won. I mean, what was the other reason? What was the reason?
So, man.
So yeah, it's Indiana history, and it's no mystery. They know. And it was like a big package deal, because I even had people down in Johnson County, because there's things going down in Johnson County, and Lance Hamner was a prosecutor at the time, and he asked me to come in. You know, just like the FBI asked me to come in. It's like, hey, you guys don't have to come knock on my door. You don't have to sit down and have a cup of coffee with me. Anytime you guys have any questions, just call me. I know where you work at. I used to protect your building. I sit up on the 6th floor. I'll come in there and I'll chit chat with you all day and tell you everything you need to know. Don't worry about it. I said, I won't pull no punches. I'll tell you the truth. You know. So they know they can talk to me. I'm wanting to talk to somebody. And that's what the problem is. They know that. You know. It's not like I'm trying to pull any punches, because I'm right and they know it, and that's what the problem is, you know?
So do you have a hard time getting this message out to people?
Well, yeah, because you got the people. It's all about media, man. When you talk about the Indianapolis Star, pretty much has a monopoly on Indiana, as you know how it is, when they have the Indianapolis Star and the Indiana News. So they pretty much have a monopoly on what the people hear, as well as the news channels. Okay, so yeah, there's different actual news footage that I have on my YouTube videos of the actual, you know, incident, the actual toppling the monument, you know, the news reporting, this, that, and the other. But it's more of, he has a problem with government promoting religion, and nobody was covering it, that I was, you know, pretty upset that they're profaning and desecrating that which is sacred. And not only doing that, they're breaking the constitutional law by giving preference to these little pagans underground without, you know, being on the up and up about it. So when you challenge them or use civil disobedience and try to make an issue of it, they want to sweep that under the rug. They don't want that to be. They would rather me be free than to have to deal with a court case in Indiana history that shows the reality that they're pagans breaking the law. They're lawless ones. And not only are they violating the law, not only are they desecrating, profaning that which is sacred to me, they're getting away with doing things that they shouldn't be able to get away with doing, like having a little, you know, goat god at the wrong place at the wrong time. Basically in my domain.
It seems like you got them by the balls there. Why don't you go out and do more of this stuff, that the destroying monuments and whatnot?
No, it was a matter of making the issue. The issue is made. I mean, I wouldn't mess with Pan now. Pan's perfect just the way he is. Let him sit on the pedestal.
So you don't have any more beefs with Indianapolis and stuff?
No, I think having a limp fertility god is enough.
I mean, it's like the Ten Commandments. Governor Frank O'Bannon came in after commandments were down, and there was a big push to restore the Ten Commandments. And that's why I got Judge Roy Moore, and they had that whole phony baloney stuff of him trying to put the commandments up. It was all about trying to get the commandments lawfully put up, because they kind of like snuck it in the first time. You know, back in '58, they snuck it in. Now they had to actually pass a law to do that, so they was trying to, you know, drum up support, this, that, and the other. And Governor O'Bannon wanted to put this big, huge monument of the Ten Commandments. This time they was going to include the Second Commandment, which you would think I would say, well, that's good, that's gravy. But no, they wanted to include the writings of other great men, as if the Ten Commandments is secular writings of just great men. So they wanted to include, you know, different quotes and sayings of different famous people on the Ten Commandments, you know, to appease the ICLU, you know, to make it secular. They wanted to make the Ten Commandments a secular monument, if you can grasp that, as if that couldn't be offensive, you know. So I wrote a letter to Governor Bannon, and I started off with, be afraid, be very afraid. Well, of course, the FBI wants me to come down and talk to him. What do you mean about this? Afraid, be very afraid. That sounds like you're threatening the governor. I said, no, that's warning the governor, which I feel like I have a duty and obligation to do as a good and rightful citizen, because the historical, I don't know if they know about the Ten Commandments or not, but the historical trend of the Ten Commandments is when you do what the governor's trying to do with that sacred text, it ends up with them dying in power. And I said, and I'm just trying to warn the guy, because I'm just a decent Joe that way. And, you know, like I said, after I talked to him, I guarantee it, like Lance Hamner, he told the Daily Journal, he was quoting the Daily Journal, and he goes, Schroeder's unlike anybody I've ever talked to before. He raises some questions I've never even considered. You know, it's one of those things that when you know you're right, I'll sit across the table from anybody. And I guarantee you when I'm done talking, they'll understand the reason I'm talking the way I am with the authority I got is because I have right on my side, and I'm right, and they're the ones that are in the sneaky wrong. And they know that. And that's why I'm a free bird, and the only time I'm behind bars is when I choose to be, to make a point. And that's why it would be pointless and redundant to do the vain repetitions. I mean, they still got the Monument Circle downtown. They still got Magic Circle, Magic Square. They got the history of child sacrifice. They got the history of genocide of my Cherokee people on their hands.
Right.
You know, I mean, their sins are stacked up into heaven. I ain't worried about doing anything else to them. I was trying to prove a point what it's all about, and I did that. And I've got all the information. I've got all the goodies, and they've got all the dirt. And they're busted.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Well, thanks for talking with us tonight, Stephen.
Yeah, we're out of time.
I hope they could understand somewhat what we're
I'm sure they will. Thank you for helping us solve Indianapolis's longest-running mystery.
That's right. That's right. Just I'll let you know. Well, thanks for the opportunity. I enjoyed it.
All right, ProtestantSep.com, right?
Protestant Sep on YouTube videos and ProtestantSep@yahoo.com.
Okay.
Or Facebook me at Steven Schroeder.
All right, thanks a lot, sir. All right, my friends, it is the end of the show. Yeah. We want to thank Darren at Indian Tune.
Thanks, Darren.
The voice of Indianapolis Radio. I want to thank Steven Schroeder for helping us get to the bottom of the gateway to hell. And John, what do you got?
Yeah, just a big thanks to Steven Schroeder, man. It's a hard topic to cover just all at once. I think he's got a lot of crazy stuff going on in his brain, and stuff that he's researched and all this knowledge he knows. It's kind of hard to regurgitate it in 30, 40 minutes, but I really appreciate him taking the time to try to do that, and hopefully we can get this story out.
Mystery solved.
Mystery solved, man, on the Chris Brake Show. We're doing some serious work over here, solving mysteries.
Yeah, Scooby-Doobs. Yeah. Scooby-Dooby-Doob. I think I'm just going to let this music just play.
Cod liver oil.
The day you left me,
I've been so miserable, my dear. I feel almost as bad as I did when you were still here.